What's up, guys? It's Ryan at Leadhead. I took a trip out to the lake. Only got to fish a short amount of time because my daughter's car broke down, so still in the fishing mood. So we're going to do a little drop shot tutorial today, kind of show you my method and what works for me. I've got an underwater camera down here, so we're going to see how this bait works and what, as you move your rod, what effect that really has on the bait underwater. Okay guys, so just getting started. I've got my Dropshot rig here. I'll go over in another video the gear, because I could go on for days about the gear. But as you see down there, we've got a camera in the pool and just a few things that actually work for me today, and I wanted to kind of share that. So I'm going to cast down there and we're going to see the bait move in the water. Now, drop shot is a finesse technique, guys, and I see when I first started drop shotting anyway, you know, I would take it and just start jerking it around, just tap tap tap, shaking it, trying to, you know, oh, it's all about action, all about action. Well, it's really not all about action sometimes. I mean, sometimes you can work a drop shot aggressively and that's what's appropriate, but the majority of the time you're on a drop shot because it's middle of the day, it's winter time, it's cold, the fish are kind of lethargic and shut down, so that's why we're fishing a drop shot in the first place. So, you know, I'll cast it down there in front of the camera and we're going to see that drop shot sink. Okay, and that's the first step. I'm going to flip my bail over. I'm not going to turn the handle to make this thing you know, flip over. You guys, it used to be a habit of mine. I didn't think it was a big deal, just turning the handle like that, but it's super hard on your gear and it actually causes loose line, it causes line twist. So flip the bait up there, flip your bail. The one time I actually started thinking about it was when I saw a video Mike Iaconelli said it's his biggest pet peeve when he sees people do that, and he told why, and it actually makes sense. And you know, when you just jar, that jarring to your gear adds up over time. So I do it automatically now, where I just flip the bail with my hand. But you hit your target, and it's kind of interesting to actually see, because in your mind, right, the weight's on the bottom, your line's up, and this bait's out here and goes dangling about a foot up or however long your leader is. But the effects of what you actually do with your rod and how it affects the bait are pretty major, right? So if you can see that the bait is, now most people are like, okay, I've got the weight on the bottom and the worm up in the air and I just need to shake it and move it and shake it like this and drag it across the bottom, and that's okay sometimes. But watch what happens. You know, how many times have you guys fished and you make a cast and they hit the bait on the drop? Right? Happens all the time. Like, and I'm talking about the first pitch while it's initial bait sinking, a fish whacks it. And a lot of times that happens with Senkos, happens with drop shots sometimes too on the initial fall. But if you can, that dropping action is what's drawing the bite. So when I throw this bait in, guys, instead of just working it as fast as you can and shaking it and trying to make it do all kinds of action, you can do a few things. You can dead stick it like this, dead still. And when I say dead stick it, I'm not talking about 3 seconds, 5 seconds. I'm talking about 20 seconds sometimes, where you just don't even move it. You let the water kind of move it and let the worm do its thing and let the worm work for you. And so if I'm dead sticking it, that's one method to do it. But also, while you're dead sticking it, I'm gonna make sure the bait's in front of the camera so you can see this. And this is how these days I catch, I'd say half my fish on drop shot from doing this method. But I bring that bait down, right, and I'm working a little bit, and then I just drop all slack in the line. Right, line's just loose. You see that bait? It kind of sinks slowly to the bottom. Depends on what worm you have. It'd probably be nose first on the robo worms I'm using. We'll have to see what the video shows. But other worms might sink sideways. But that sink, that super subtle sink, and a lot of times once you let it sink, you pick up, there's weight, right? And there's a fish on there. So now you're just setting the hook straight up in the air, and you've got your hook pinned, you know, with the fish. So that's a big thing is, you know, don't work it too fast. You're throwing a drop shot for a reason. This is not a crankbait. This is something we need to have some real finesse with and be patient with. And you know, I've been to I've been to seminars where they say it takes up to 3 to 5 minutes for an idle fish, a fish who's in kind of shutdown mode, to even go investigate a bait in their area. Okay, think about 3 to 5 minutes. That's a long time when you're fishing. Right, so I'm not telling you to wait 5 minutes every time, you know, you make a cast, but that gives you an idea that we need to slow down a little bit, especially. And some people will get frustrated, don't like the drop shot. A lot of that's just because they're not fishing it right, you know. So we throw this drop shot out here. We can do a number of things. We can change leader size. We can, you know, in the winter time, you might have a 3-inch leader. You know, you might have an 18-inch leader if you see those fish on the bottom suspended just a little bit. But 12-inch, about what I use normally. That bait's in the water. I'm shaking a little bit. I'm dead sticking it. I'm letting it drop. You can get 10, 12 different drops of that bait down to the bottom in one cast. If you're really, it should take you a couple minutes to do a retrieve on a drop shot. Now, it takes patience, it takes discipline to do that and execute that, but hey, that's what it takes if you want to be successful trying to catch a bunch of fish drop shotting. Drop shot's not necessarily a small fish bait. Of course, you're going to catch small fish, but some of the biggest fish I've ever caught have been drop shot fish. You know, 6 pounders, 6.5 pounders, 5 pounders on a regular basis on the drop shot method. So don't think it's just a small fish bait. Don't think you don't need to pick up the fairy wand every once in a while. You're going to have a lot more fun catching fish than heaving a crankbait out when you just got microscopic chances of getting that thing bit. But this is kind of how I'm now. Let's look at how subtle the rod tip does. So I see a lot of guys, and I used to do it all the time too. And sometimes I'll still do it if it's right. But you got to know what the bait's going to do. So here's the rod movement, and you see these guys cast it out and then do this, and lift the rod up like this, and then reel down. But you don't realize that weight's coming off the bottom, right? Quite a bit. You're just lifting it up, you think you're dragging it, but it's really coming off the bottom quite a bit. So it takes very little movement to make the bait do things down there. You think you're just, oh, I'm just lifting and dragging it. Well, not really. Watch. Okay, so I've got the rod here at not flat, at horizontal. I lift it up just this fast. Look, it moved 6 feet, and the weight went way out of the air and way down. Unless you've got a specific reason to do that, here's what you really should be doing. Okay, so let's look and see what the bait does when I just move it like this. Can you guys even see my rod moving? You see what it's doing to the bait? You know, once you get the exact right feel, that weight will be on the bottom, and you can move the worm without moving the weight. You're just switching it in place. And then it makes a drop in there, let it sink, shake, 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 shake. But I've already moved it a couple feet, just shaking it. Okay, so there really is a pretty dramatic reaction to what your bait's doing, even though you feel like you're barely moving your rod. So just a couple pops like this, and the bait's coming up, it's all over the place. And that weight's underneath it, it just doesn't look natural. It's not gonna get a lethargic fish to react when you're making it go crazy. Might as well be throwing a jerk bait or something. Of all the things I've learned in bass fishing, I'm probably most confident fishing a drop shot because I know how to get bit, and I know I'm gonna get bit if I do it right and if I have patience. The patience part's the toughest part, for sure. Because, you know, you want to catch a fish, you're a little pissed off maybe because you're not catching them, it's later in the day, now you're throwing a worm, and it's like, ugh, and you're just working it like this, and you can see, what a waste of time, really jerking around like this. Unless you happen to, in one of your jerks, you happen to land that bait right on, you know, the fish's head, you know, you're making a bad situation worse with the drop shot. So, you know, boom, boom, boom. Look, mean, look, I don't know how much of the rod you can see, but I'm barely moving this thing. I haven't even reeled once, and it's moved like 5 feet. But don't be afraid. I would say on one cast, try, if you haven't tried this before and you want to let it drop, try it 5 times a cast. Make a point next time you're out there drop shotting on a tougher day. You work the bait a little bit like you normally would, pretty subtle, and then just let it drop. Okay, and then you pick up. And you won't feel the fish bite. We got slack line. You won't feel the fish bite. When you pick up, you're gonna feel pressure. And then you just reel up. There's no reason to make a huge hook set. But that's probably my biggest drop shot tip for people. Slow down, let it drop. You bought good equipment, let the equipment do what it's supposed to do, and be patient. And you're gonna catch fish on a drop shot on tougher days. And guys, I could go on and on about drop shot, and we're just barely scratching the surface here on the technique and the line, the baits, the whole deal. So I'm going to do some more videos on more like my gear and my baits and go in depth on that stuff. But just wanted to share that. I couldn't spend a ton of time on the water and wanted to share that little tip with you. Leave a comment. Guys, like would be awesome. And subscribing, of course, if you want to see, you know, future content. I do a lot of adventure videos. I do some how-to. I like box openings. I'm a tackle junkie. So if you're into that, hit me up with a subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.